Hello, everyone. It is Rizolka, and it is which direction? Yeah, I'm pointing in the correct direction. Dave! This is Dave.
Yo.
Dave has not made an adventure game before. He has tried a couple of times, but has never completed one. So, I
Story of my
thought...
life, everything that I do.
I mean, I have completed some things. I haven't completed anything in a little while, but I have... My bigger problem is that I have been going too big in scope. So we're going to try and make something small to begin with, and then we can bounce up from there. So we're going to learn how to make games in not quite 4 engines, but 2 engines, 3 different plugins. So we're going to start off with AGS, which is a very happy, good tool for making adventure games. It has some limitations, although I haven't used it for maybe like 2 or 3 years, so maybe some of those limitations are gone, but part of it is how it actually works and scripts together. I was feeling stifled, I moved out of it. But it is still an excellent thing, and I mean, like, look at our good friend Francisco Gonzalez. He came out with Lamplight City. He made that in AGS. It is a terrific game. So if you're quite happy to work with the system will work with you. After AGS, we'll be moving to Unity. We'll be using 3 different tools in Unity. 2 of them are free, 1 of them is paid. We'll be first using Fungus, which was primarily made to make hidden object games, but it also has quite a few adventure game things in it. I have it. I haven't actually not used it, but apparently it is extremely easy, so I'm gonna do some scouting before we go into that.
Just writing stuff down.
Good.
Fungus.
So we'll be learning Fungus. We will then be moving on to Adventure Creator, which is the paid one. I have a lot of experience with Adventure Creator. I've never completed a game with it. We will go through the reasons that my particular ideas have not quite worked in Adventure Creator. It's a very good tool. I just keep getting bogged down by the same thing and I can't solve it. So the thing that I
had the same problem with Adventure Creator trying to do my Mistlike in it. I couldn't figure out how to get the scenes to change, so this will be interesting.
Yeah, well, see, like, I worked out how to get, I've got all that part working. I have a lag issue where...
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, where, like, transitioning from scene to scene, for some reason, has up to 5 seconds wait, which is not something that people really want to sit around for in a commercial game. So I'd gotten, probably 10% along with a couple games and then just been like, no, not so much. The last full game that I released, which was Ghostly Desires, that's made in NGS. That's made in Adventure Creator, and it does have a delay. It's kind of come down since we did a whole heap of tinkering with it, but it's still like 2 to 3 seconds, which is a long wait time. So the last thing that we're going to be learning, that the thing is that I'm actually most excited about because I've been teaching myself with that, is Power Quest, written by an Australian guy actually called Powerhoof. Or I think it's a group of guys, but the main guy is Dave, and he's actually in some of our communities. Not this Dave. This Dave is not so much on the programming. We're gonna get him there. That said, again, I am a self-taught programmer. My what's it called? Not my profession, because I'm not even working in it. My degree. That's it. I have a bachelor's degree in 3D animation. We will be also touching into how to create assets. Again, I will try and do the most free thing as possible for that. Although we will be touching in some things that I have paid money for, how you can use it if that's the path that you want to go on. So that's pretty much the raison d'etre of Joy of Adventure. As I said, we're starting with AGS. But the thing that you always need to do before deciding to do any single game is you need to work out what you're actually going to make. We're going to be doing design this time. We will be revisiting design. Basically, each time that we go through a new engine, or I said new engine, we move on to another system. We will be upping our design brief to include more things, do some more interesting things. Yeah. Dave is obsessed with keys.
It's my my missed levers. My games are all gonna have keys. Many
If
keys.
you watched our previous attempt at Joy of Adventure, you may have noticed that Dave had 20 keys to solve his puzzle, to solve his game.
What can I say?
And what I'm going to say is you've just gone majorly out of focus. There you are. What I'm going to say is that we are talking about scope as well as complexity. So for this very first game, we are going to have a very tied down brief. We are specifically in this, we are going to talk about certain questions. When it comes, so basically for this, you're going to have one overall goal, and you're going to
10
have
keys. Yep.
you're going to have 3 obstacles. So 3 obstacles to me sounds like the most you can have is 3 keys, Dave.
Well, I could do 15 if it's 5 keys per obstacle.
Okay.
I'm kidding. I'm not going to do that yet.
So yes, I'm going to post this link here. It is just how to get Adventure Game Studio. You just go there and hit download AGS. It's yours. Install it. It's free. Who doesn't love free stuff?
It's amazing.
Yeah. So I'm going to tell you the questions that I have accidentally just taken off my screen entirely. I closed it. There we go. Okay. So here are the questions that for this, particularly for this game, that you're going to want to answer. And if I had even a slightly another day, I would have been able to pop this on the screen in some sort of way.
Yep.
But, I work a full-time job. So,
Yeah.
I have posted this to Dave. I'm also going to make inside the Discord that we have, the Grammar Hole, which I'm also putting a link across the screen right now, if I'm good at my job of editing. And you can join that. You can join along making Joy of Adventure with us. But I'll post this question there and the questions. And from there, we can go from there. So, first question. Protagonist. Who are we? Number.
That boy.
Yes, we're Tad, that boy. Press the soundboard. You know you want to.
I'm that boy.
Thank you. Okay. Where and when are we? Setting, basically. One other character. Because we are trying to do every single main function in AGS, I would like to have another person there so that we can have a dialogue tree. What is our main goal? What is our overall objective of this game? And then 3 obstacles. Obstacle 1, Obstacle 2, Obstacle 3. How it begins. What's your opening cutscene? What can we talk about in our dialogue tree? What is the item to solve the puzzles? And what happens when you use the correct puzzle, the correct item? And how it ends. So obviously what you can get from that is that we are doing inventory-based puzzles because it is the most common adventure game puzzle. In this, we have outlined the basics. Who we are, what we're dealing with, what the problem is, and how to overcome it. And, some things for the funning. You gotta have the funning. Adventure games have always been with some sort of humor. The ones that don't have some sort of humor, they're not bad, but you kind of... Especially when when you're making something small, you want the funnies. You don't want to bring somebody down. I mean, it may happen anyway, depending on your plot. But,
with 20 keys, yes. That will
with
happen.
20 keys, you are going to make someone very unhappy. Anyway, basically, this is a core of an adventure game, or really a narrative game. Anything more complex is kind of repeats of this. Some of it might be nested, let's talk about Monkey Island really briefly. That is 3 main obstacles with multiple puzzles underneath of them. Once you've completed those 3, the whole thing goes off. Boom. You kind of get like once you've done your 3 main trials, you get kind of like, an extra case or an extra objective, but it solves the whole story. Let us talk about hooks. Story hooks. So basically at this point, we know kind of what we want, but we need to build a thing. So because we really want to kind of get this going off the bat, and some people, it happens to everyone really, have trouble kind of coming up with a quick thing. You might have something in mind and you're like, I'm really excited about that. That's going to be my magnum opus. This is not the time for that. This is the time for the joy of adventure story sparkler.
You said the thing.
I did say the thing. So I'm going to post this in the chat. And again, you're now going to see the link across the top. There will also be a link in the description below on YouTube. Basically, you're all now editors of this. Did I hit the right button for share?
You've given them way too much power way too quickly.
Well, there's special editors, and then there's, anyone can look at this. Anyway, so what this is that this comes up with, it gives you a protagonist name, it gives you a profession, and it gives you a story seed. So we have put in a list of 2,000 male and female names. We've put in, I think we got it to 440 professions. I literally went through lists on the internet that just said, these are jobs. And then the story seeds are all things that I have just written, and, Dave did some. I've got one or two, I think, from, Pickle Dog and Wilco Webb. Now how this works, it randomizes itself, but because we're just doing it in a Google Sheets thing, you basically just put in a number and press enter and the seed changes. So, but the interesting thing is that if you're in at the same time as someone else, you both have different seeds. So at the moment, I have a protagonist called Edgar. He's an artist, and he's waiting for a table. Let's speed this up. What have you got at the moment, Dave?
I've got Jake. He's a diver, and someone's stuck in a strange place.
Oh, so
that's a good one.
Yeah, sometimes you get very serendipitous ones. I'm trying to remember. I actually got the generic, the generic purity one. And I think my protagonist's name was Jesus. And it was just okay, so Jesus really wants everyone to be an everyman. If you weren't there for that, basically Dave and I have been playing Tex Murphy, and I mispronounced genetic purity, and it's become generic purity.
It's canon now. It's canonized.
It's canonized. They just
I'm going to edit the Tex Murphy wiki later. I'm gonna edit that.
Yeah. So because the thing I like about that is that they're now not going for, genetic perfection. They're now going for everyone to be the everyman. The communist approach to eugenics. That still makes me laugh. All right. So the question is, do I want to make Edgar the artist waiting for a table? Let's speed this up. That would be a nice small adventure. Mm-hmm. Because I've got an objective, and I'm probably trying to clear out as many tables as possible.
Mm-hmm. Maybe it's one location. It's like a restaurant.
Yeah, because I don't want to move around. Especially in this one, I want one room. I'm going for not so much complexity. I'm going for something that everything can happen at once. I might do something a bit special by having it be a long room. Yes, so I'm going to go with Edgar, the artist, who is waiting for a table. I'm going to take a screenshot of that just so that I don't lose it. Are you going to go with your seed, or are you going to try and pick something new?
I'm going to pick something new just to see how it works.
Okay,
so
well, I am now out of it, so, yep. Oh, let me get that out of your way. Stuck it in front of your face. Did you change? Ah, there we go. So that has now given me the new seed of Beatrix, who's an actuary. So it turns out vampires are real.
Ooh. I've got Eileen the DJ, and is this hell? What happened to you? What did you do?
What I like about that is that sounds like she's played some tracks that she shouldn't have.
Yeah. Ooh.
You could be in a disco. You can have some people in there that are at the disco. You know what? You could have effing Bulby in there. Bulby at the disco. Just flashing.
Just flashing.
You've now given me Rain, who's an obstetrician. invited to a dinner party. Michelle,
All right.
what have you got?
I'm gonna do this one more time, and then
Yep.
whatever it is, I'm gonna stick with it because I haven't been feeling these. But
You know, you can just put a single one in there, right?
oh,
Atreus. You got Atreus, the astronaut. You're broke, but you don't want anyone to know.
I've got Davis, the lactation consultant, and a family of ghosts want to buy a new house to haunt. I'm in. I am in. Let's do it. Let's fucking do this. All right. Now, first thing I want to talk about is keys. So.
Okay, let's do this in order. So let me go back to the list.
Yeah.
Okay, so you know who your protagonist is. Yours is what's it called?
Davis. I'm gonna
Davis.
screen cap this before I lose it as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna copy mine as well. Hang on, cap of my Edgar. Edgar's an artist. Okay, so Edgar, I'm gonna give him the last name of technically Degas, but actually pronounced Degas. Edgar Degas. He's an artist. Now we know for mine, I'm gonna say my favorite cafe. Again, my as in like the protagonist's cafe. Oh, I'm gonna make it Paris. But I'm gonna make it Paris, Illinois.
Ooh. I'm gonna make mine.
In 1969. Now our main other character is gonna be Doris. She is the oh yes, you should let us know what
So I've got Davis Malkman.
Oh, I like that.
A lactation consultant, and we are in Miami, Western Australia.
Oh, see.
In 1994.
Oh, 94, what a good year. So yeah, Doris, she's the waitress. I am going to have a couple of other people, but they will be props. They will not want to talk to Edgar Gadar. Obstacle one, for me, I'm going to say that there is a woman waiting for her croissant. It's been bloody forever. What's your overall objective? Well, I mean, we do know that you have a group of ghosts that want to buy a new house.
So basically, what I'm thinking is the ghosts. Well, the one other character I made was Robin Wells.
Okay.
He's the ghost husband of Claire.
Oh, I see. Yes. Yes.
And I'm thinking he comes to I'm thinking Davis wakes up in the middle of the night and has this ghost standing over him, and he's basically saying, "Hey, we're moving in because there's a spiritual real estate agent, and we've purchased this place to haunt. So you don't have to do anything, but we're moving in, and our main goal is to get the ghosts out."
Okay. So obstacle one, I guess. Are you going to have multiple rooms, or is it going to be like a studio apartment where they've taken over various parts of the apartment?
Let's make it a studio apartment where they've
I
taken
like that.
over various.
I
like
nice
that as well
small.
because Claire would be like, "Robin, a studio, really?" Like, yeah, let's do that.
You know what? I would
Barber
also say
has a mansion in Harley.
you could cheat an extra room by having the bathroom where you disappear into it, but you don't actually go in there. It's just like it closes off and then opens back up again and go, well, I've done my business. Obstacle 2 for my cafe. I'm going to have someone else at another table. I'm going to have a bickering married couple. You reckon gents or ladies? I like the idea of it being a same sex. Oh, you know what? I can sneak a little bit from life if I make it ladies, because I remember there was one time, this is when I was living out in an apartment years and years and years ago. I woke up one morning, so the walls in this place was really great, but it turns out the floors and roofs, if someone screamed right into them, you could pretty much hear everything. So I woke up to two women shouting at each other, and the first thing that I could really make out legibly was, "You told me you didn't need dick anymore." Um,
That's a slice of life that
yes, yes.
we can
And-
incorporate here.
And then I saw clothing raining down outside my window. And then that after the screaming match finished, the one that decided to stay just cried into the floor, and it just echoed in my apartment. And I went, I'm going home to my parents this weekend, I think. Getting away from this. And my third obstacle will be that one is just the table needs clearing, but the waitress is too busy to do it. And so basically mine will be, you'll be able to solve mine in any order, but each time he will consider something wrong, I reckon. He'll be like, this isn't my favorite table. How it begins. Edgar arrives with his sketchbook. Oh yes, well, your objectives. So what were your objectives?
So I'm just finishing them off now. So I'm thinking obstacle 1. So obviously our overall objective is to get these ghosts out of our house, or out of our apartment. Obstacle 1 will be to find a clause to nullify the haunting deed. So it could be like examining it and going, okay. They've chosen this place because it's it's a really dreary, cheap apartment, and it's like easy to haunt. So let's make objective 2. Let's make the house seem too bright and happy, so we can clean up a bit.
I like it.
And then the third obstacle, I just put convince Robin that he could probably get a better haunt.
Oh, dialogue puzzle. I like it. I like it. I'm talking about beginning of, my opening cutscene, which you have already kind of talked about being awoken by Robert.
Robin.
Okay. Robin, sorry, you're right.
And Claire.
I was just kind of like, Robert sounds too upper class for that Ponce. And if you don't know where that comes from, that's Titanic Honor and Glory, isn't it? The demo. Yep. We don't know if he's in the actual game. But
go and get that demo. It's worth a play.
The things that are said in that demo. It's this beautiful Titanic VR game, but they've got this narrator called Robin, who's the boat inspector, who there's a particular part that you go past the barber and the barber shop, and he just goes, "Ooh, the barber always took care of my wife Claire when I was away."
Yeah. Claire used to love the barber. Our son Bobby loved him too. They spent so much time with him in the summer.
Yes, and it's just like, oh, are you sure that's your son? I don't think so. Anyway, okay, so for mine, Edgar's gonna arrive with his sketchbook. He wants to he wants to draw at his favorite desk, table really. You know what? Actually, I'm going to say that the favorite table doesn't exist anymore. The favorite table has been stolen. The table is gone. And
it's the worst thing that can happen.
Doris says he will have to, use another table.
Oh, no!
But they're all occupied. So
What
he's
are we
going to
gonna
have
do?
to wait. All right, so what we can talk about with Doris, well, obviously we can talk about the table. We can talk about all our obstacles, which is just shorthand to say, I don't want to type out all those things. Obstacles. You know what? I'm also going to add in like how in Gabriel Knight, there's the just tell me anything at all, which is just basically, let's just talk shit and build not a relationship between you and the person, but it's kind of like to establish that you and this person know each other. So I'm just going to call me, again, I'm not going to call it just tell me anything at all, but to refer to it in this, it'll be just tell me anything at all.
Cool.
And we might do some interesting things with that, in terms of actually making it a call and response, in terms of she'll say something, but then you actually get to decide what you're going to talk back at. So, yeah. I will probably do both versions. What about you? What are you going to talk about?
What can we talk about? I just wrote, what do you mean? I just wrote, fucking hell. I just wrote,
Yep.
What do you mean there's a ghost business, like a realtor, but it's called a haunter? That's all I wrote.
That works
But-
fine.
But to at least say I thought of something, I have a puzzle already in mind.
Okay, good.
And don't worry, there's only 4 keys. Nah, I'm kidding. There's no keys involved. There's no keys.
Maybe he'll give you a key at the end of it. That'll be like your seed to your next game. To be like,
Ooh.
he's giving you the key to the old house.
I like that. We'll revisit that. But I've
yes.
got using a radio like a spirit box, like in Phantasmophobia, right?
Oh yeah.
But to make it easy, it's not gonna be crazy, right? It's just gonna be a normal radio, and because he's trying to use this normal radio as a spirit box, you have to manually change the frequency. So every time you switch the dial, it'll say a word, and you need to figure out what the sentence is by listening to them and putting them together.
Okay, that's a complex puzzle, but you know what? We can work out how to program that. It won't be that difficult. It's just a matter of
All right,
how we want to control it.
You've got to tell me if I go too complex, because you know what I'm like with this sort of shit.
I think because I like that idea, but I think what we can do is actually simplify it so it's a lot. It's not like because like you're talking about like a dial or like being able to change the channel.
Yeah.
I reckon we can do presets, so it would really just look like buttons.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah, so buttons are very easy to do, and we'll go into that a lot more in like when we start talking, like because we're gonna have like a whole episode lesson on logic, and logic will include more difficult puzzles. So we'll go into the detail of that.
I'm getting excited. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So items to solve, you've already got one, so that will be your radio. For me,
and that'll be for obstacle 3 as well, because you're going to call the haunter.
Yes. You're gonna call him names.
Radio.
I'm gonna need a croissant for my woman. For my bickering couple, you know what? I'm gonna get. You're gonna have to find a book. There, it's gonna be one of those. The Secret. It'll be like men. God, it's gonna be so terrible. It's gonna be like men are from. Women are from Venus, men are from Mars, and it's just like they just like get dumbstruck because it's like we're both women. What the heck?
Oh boy!
I'm gonna write that down. Women are from Venus, men are from Mars. Because it's 1969. Actually, I'm not sure if that book came out then. I'll find out something appropriate, or I'll change the year to the first year that book came out. And then the table that needs clearing. What would you say would be a extreme puzzle solution to that? Would you say like that would be, you don't want to destroy the table because you want to sit at it, but what about like a reverse, like the trick of pulling out the tablecloth to, just pull out the tablecloth. But instead, you have to try and get the tablecloth underneath so that you can then rip it off and everything falls to the ground instead.
I like that. I really like that.
Okay, I'm going to say tablecloth.
Reverse cloth.
Yeah, so the croissant. My next part along is like what happens when you use the correct item. So for the croissant, she's gonna put it on her head and she's gonna wear it around like a crown, like a crescent moon. She's gonna declare herself Sailor Moon. Woman puts on head.
So good.
Declares she's Sailor Moon and jumps out of there. Book. They're gonna be really confused and back away from the man, away from Edgar Degas. And then of course the tablecloth. It puts the shit on the ground. Okay, how it ends. So each of these will come with like a cutscene where, like a very short cutscene where he sits down at the table and then goes, I don't like it. After all tables have been tried, He doesn't like any of them. And leaves. I like the idea of it just being a really anticlimactic, but like kind of like he'll have like a hissy fit about it before he leaves.
Love it.
Just be like an ultimate meltdown and just be like, okay, so bye.
I'm off. Okay.
Leaves. Okay, what is happening in yours? So you've got the radio that's going to take care of your objective 3. What happens when you do the correct thing with the radio?
So basically, I'm thinking like the ghost realtor's going to be like, "Oh, I've given you the wrong place," and like that would be the sentence or something shorter than that.
Okay,
And then
good.
when Robin hears that, he's like, "Oh, well, then that explains it." And then how it ends is Robin and Claire leave with their ghost kids.
Okay, so your other objectives aren't really. They're not plot structure, and they're not holding up the walls of your plot. They're just things you can do.
Yeah, well, the second one, it's like you've got to do that dialogue choices to make Robin convinced that he can get a better place. And then he's like, well, I need to hear it from my realtor. And that's when you do the radio.
Yeah, so mine is all happening at the same time. I can do mine in any order. Yours sounds like one after the other, which is also, it's not wrong. It's just a different way of doing it. That's the great thing about adventure games. There are no wrong answers. There are just wrong control schemes. Speaking of which, let's talk about control schemes. I think for mine, I'm going to go for the very simple right to look, left to action, and then I'm going to have a UI that has a inventory box somewhere on it that I can click that will bring up my inventory, and then I'll click that, and then my mouse will turn into the inventory item that I can then click on the thing, and I'll have an options menu.
Same thing.
Okay,
Just
good.
Simple, yeah.
Good. So I think that's good because that is not a standard. There's a couple of things in AGS that you do through the Game Wizard, and that is one of the first options that you get. So thumbs up.
Cool.
So I'm going to write mine down as well. Right to look. Left to action. Inventory box on screen to open. Are you writing all this down, Dave? Are you going to remember all this, or are you just going to watch the video back?
I'll write it down.
Okay. To open inventory. So we've already kind of talked about our UI. Let's see, and we've talked about our controls. While you're writing that down, I'm going to talk about some other things that are up at the moment. Well, not up at the moment. Some more standard things. So we've got the King's Quest way of doing things, where it's kind of like a verb. You left click to do. Oh, sorry. No. You've got your verbs. You click on your verbs. Your cursor turns into the verbs. You can then use your verbs. There's also the LucasArts way, where you kind of had, the Scum way, the original Scum way, where you'd have all your verbs at the bottom. You click on it, it would highlight what verb it is, and then you could use that verb anywhere. There's other things such as verb coins, where, for instance, Cursor Monkey Island, you click on the object, up comes this coin that has the verbs on it, and then the one that you click on then happens.
Throttle.
Yes. Now they talk about that as so. To explain a bit more of a technical way of putting it, the way Adventure Creator puts it is that they talk about their hotspots, which is the thing that you can click on, and your interaction, which is kind of your verb or what you're using with it. So, for example, your verb coin would be would be hotspot, then interaction. In the case of you using a cursor or an object on top of something, that would be your interaction on top of your hotspot. So it kind of flips around. But again, as I mentioned, I'm currently working on a website where it actually will be outlaying how different games take care of their puzzles. So these will be things that you will be able to soon, hopefully in the next couple of weeks, begin to start seeing how these different methods actually exist and coincide against each other. Another variant that I can think of off the top of my head, Synergist. Synergist, it didn't matter if you left clicked or right clicked, you got look to begin with, and then you would right click to walk around and left click to action. But I do like that initial, doesn't matter what you're doing, if you're clicking on that hotspot, it is going to tell you what he sees. It's kind of ballsy.
Would you call Return to Zork a verb coin?
Yes,
You know,
that's a very interesting verb coin, because not only is it a verb coin, it's a context sensitive verb coin. It will only bring up verbs that relate to your hotspot. I have no idea how they actually programmed that. That actually would be a worthwhile thing to try and break apart.
It's pretty good, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I am, because I thought about it before, because there's also Callahan's Cross Time Saloon.
Gotta play that.
Oh my god, we should totally play it on the grammar hole. RTZ verb coin. I want to know how that works. Actually, probably the same thing with Callahan's. I could probably actually speak to Josh Mandel in that instance. But what's it called? The idea of Callahan's, that's what I was talking about. So the interesting thing about Callahan's is that's not so much of a verb coin as it's a list. You click on it and the list pops up. But again, that is context sensitive. It will only show you the verbs that relate to that hotspot, and it can grow. So like if you click on something and it goes, well, you know what? You did that thing, so now you can do this other thing to it. It will add it to the list. It is amazing.
That's cool. That is cool, yeah.
Amazing.
Another one to break apart.
Okay, and now this is a time that we should talk about me taking off my shirt. How animated we want it, and the art style. Now, for me personally, the bigger the scope of the game, the less animation I kind of want to do.
Yeah.
So, say for example, let's talk about Lorna Baines, which is the game that I was working on in 2014 and then kind of on and off for a couple of years until recently I pretty much just went, let's try and work on something new instead.
You get to that point sometimes.
Well, yeah, and I think the fact that, that particular game, I had originally based it was basically a homage twist on Laura Bow, and now it's kind of like I've gotten it to such a point that I'm like, this has so little to do with the original Laura Bow, but if I keep using this name, it's going to constantly still be called back to it. So let's step out of it, and let's step out of that setting, and then we can do something even more interesting with this particular set of rules that I've come up with. And it's exciting. I can't wait to get into that with you at some point. But what's it called? What I was talking about, Lorna Baines. So originally, I did a little slice. The only Lorna Baines that actually came out in terms of... there are some other demos that are floating around of different methods and all that. But it wasn't actually like its own little game. This was me learning how to make games in general. This was the first thing that we actually put out. And it's a bit weird. It's running on the... what's that game called? Mixed Up Mother Goose / Mixed Up Fairy Tales method.
Yep.
Of you do technically have the verbs at the top of the screen, but you have two. You have do and you have see, which is basically, it boils down to left click to do, right click to see, except you have to click buttons at the top of the screen to switch those modes. It has no inventory. Well, it does have inventory, but it's not inventory that you actually get to see. It's just, It goes into Lorna's inventory, and if she talks to someone while she's holding it to the right person she's supposed to give it to, she gives it to them.
Yeah, I've seen that before.
Yeah, so, but the weird thing about this was that it was built on flags. So, she was waiting tables. Once you solved one person's thing, another flag would, on the tables, they each have there's the table numbers. So I had a white side and an orange side. So if you had an orange side, they wanted you to come over and take their order. And then at the end of all of that, it's the end of the shift. It's gone from daytime to nighttime. You have to go into the back room and someone's been murdered. And the reason why this is all, you have to do all that waiting tables beforehand is because people are entering in and out of that back room. So it's kind of like trying to notice when they go into that back room, who could have done it, and like in terms of like, you know, like who was the last person that you saw go into that room with that person before you were the next person going in.
Gotcha.
I was going to remake that when I was originally going to make the original one and change the killer, make it a bit more intriguing, but I basically just went, oh, well, who fuck it, because like
you get to that point.
yeah. Well, again, like, because I was moving on, because I was like, okay, I can do this and I can do this, and that would be really exciting. And I'd be like, it's still the same murder. Like, I know I've entirely changed who does it, like, why they did it, and, like, added in, like, before, like, you know, instead of it just being you walking around, like, you know, doing waitress things, you trying to get into in areas you're not supposed to be in, where the person who eventually gets murdered is just walking around, and that if he catches you in one of these areas... it's the 30s, and she's a very slight woman. So, you know, the danger's real. We'll leave it at that. So we were talking about how animated we want this. So
Yeah.
for this one in particular, I'm going to suggest that we're going to be using a sprite and doing pixel art. So, I'd say we're going to do animations. We're not going to make them hugely complicated. We're not, like, yeah, I mean, especially like when it comes to, animations in games, your brain kind of makes you want to go like, I'm going to make this look like it's actually happening to the thing. Like, you know, like if you're pulling out a tablecloth or something, it's actually, I want to draw the whole tablecloth being pulled out. No, we are just going to basically do it that the you know, the narration, because again, we're talking about scope. We want a little bit of motion to suggest something's happening. Yep. And then just let the narration box take care of the rest of it for us. So then, really, we only really need a very basic walk cycle for anyone walking in and out of the room. Again, you have ghosts, so that just means you just have to do an animated wobble and make them move.
Yeah, just like a up and down float kind of thing.
Yeah, basically. So that's it. That's going to be great. That's going to be nice and easy for you. I'm going to have a couple of people, but I'm basically just going to do, like, you know, if they're actually leaving the room, just make them fade out of existence. Let's not make it too complicated.
So that's so we're going to go third person.
Yes, that's a very good point you make. So the way that I was looking at moving, and it's what a lot of the things that I'm working on now, is that instead of having a protagonist walking around on screen, which takes a lot, like, you know, like that, to do a properly paced, decent looking walk cycle, it's a lot of time to just watch someone walk across the screen. Yeah. So what I have decided in my great wisdom is that people don't need to see that shit. They just want to see, they want to see their character, and they want to see, you know, like the actual action. So what most of the things that I've been working on myself lately is that if anyone's seen Eagle Eyes Mysteries, where, like, you know, the person walks into the scene, but they're actually in a sidebar. So you're fully seeing them, but they're in a sidebar. So you don't have to worry about them walking around the screen, but you can still see them, like, you know, reacting to people and, you know, doing this motion for some reason. Yeah. And then, like, you know, like something intriguing's happening. But, you know, someone tells you some bullshit and it's like, I don't, But yeah, so like, you can get that motion, that closeness with your protagonist without them actually having to get around. But we're making a very basic adventure game for an AGS, so we are going to have a character walking around on screen. But again, we're just going to do a really cheap and simple walk cycle. When we go through how to make those, I will go through the theory of making a good one. But we will pretty much just be like, these are the basic shapes. Let's paint it. That's done. Let's go.
Sweet. Yeah. I think, the drawing, I'm not very good at drawing. So this is going to be a learning experience.
Well, we are also going to go through that because as much as I can decently draw, I don't really have a lot of consistency from, you know, one drawing to another. It takes a lot of time and practice to get that up. Whereas because we are doing everything ourselves, you can work in teams. There's nothing wrong with working in teams. It's just that I found working in a team with someone on the other side of the world has not really worked out for me in the long run.
Yeah.
And so mostly just going to stick with me. Just going to stick with me for now. Might change later. Who knows? But you're all being trained to work for me. So I have some shortcuts on how to get consistency, including 3D. But again, we're going to talk about that later. Now, we've already talked a little bit about inventory, but, you know, it can be worthwhile when you're talking about animations and assets about what type of inventory you want. So, like, just think about things that would be naturally in your location. Obviously, you've got some things that you've already decided will solve your puzzles, but it can be worthwhile just saying, like, you know, putting in a couple of herrings. And when I say herrings, I mean red herrings, obviously. Not just the fish. I mean, if you want to put some fish in there, yeah, you can make them blue. But, like, the theory of the red herring of, like, you know, like, it's something that, you know, like, because you don't want to just have things that solve puzzles. That's kind of one of the things that irks me a little bit. Like, you don't want to have too many objects that you're not going to use. But I would always say, my recommendation is to have at least one item that while you can do stuff with it, it's not actually needed to solve anything. And it's there just so that you can't just be like, okay, I'm going to hit someone with a fish and that's going to solve everything. Be like, no, you just have a fish. But you can do things with your fish.
What would a lactation consultant have like that?
Let's breast pump! Come on!
That's what I was thinking. I didn't want to be the first one to say it, but yeah, let's do that. I'm going to write that down. Breast pump.
Oh, God. I can just imagine you suggesting to use the breast pump on the ghosts.
Yeah, ectoplasm.
Oh.
There you go. Done.
See, the reason why I went with so many interesting professions, because there's not just lactation, there's also a whole heap of different types of doctors and different types of workers. There's someone called a soaper, which I was kind of like, what, do they just soap things up? No, they actually make soaps. But, because, like, in that sense, because if you're going to make an adventure game, you're going to pick something that you know, or something that you have seen, while having these suggestions basically means you have to have a look at something and decide if there's anything in this for you to make out of it. Be interesting with the phlebotomist, because I think they deal with blood.
Ooh.
So you could find some, like, imagine a phlebotomist that's also a vampire. Huh? Anyway,
I like that.
Now, at this point, well, we've kind of already talked about our logic, but at this point, since we are, what's the word I'm looking for? Because we're not into the point where we're talking about how we do things. Really, I would just make a little flowchart of, like, you know, say, like, you write down kind of like the steps. So, like, you know, like, my table needs cleaning. I need a tablecloth. Where do I find a tablecloth? So, like, write down that type of logic. And we won't do that now. I'm going to make that the homework for this week, is to write down the series of events to solve your puzzles. And we're also going to add into that extra things. You can bring life to your puzzles without solving it. So, say, for example, you know you have a couple of inventory items. Is there a couple of things that you can do, with your inventory items that could make this interesting? Not in the sense that it's going to solve a puzzle or it's going to fuck up a puzzle, because really, we do not want to... yes, hydrate. Sorry, I turned off a lot of the things because I didn't want them distracting us while we're doing this.
Yeah.
But what was I going to say? Where was I talking about? Yes, so I don't want to create any dead man walking. I don't want to break your puzzles. If we were talking about a more complicated game, and I will talk about this in future iterations of design, or, you know, if you come into the Grammar Hall Discord, ask me anytime about laterally solved puzzles, because that's one of the things I'm kind of doing now. And just as a brief overview of what that is, rather than so a lot of adventure games, you have an inventory item, it only works in one thing. laterally puzzled, laterally inventoried. Wait. Lateral puzzles. That's the one I was after. Lateral inventory puzzles is that the use of that item in the obstacle is actually driven by the attributes of the thing. So if you need something that can, connect into something and twist like a screwdriver, a ruler might be able to do it if it's a certain size, because again, that would be in its attributes.
Yep, or a small knife.
But if you have a turnip, that's not, as much as you can twist it, it's not going to be able to connect in. So that's not going to work.
No.
So that's a very different way. I'm going to call that the complicated thing because it means you have a lot of inventory items. And again, we'll go through this when I decide to show it to you guys properly in a much more advanced game. For one thing, I'm not sure, like, when I last looked at Adventure AGS, you couldn't put in, not inventory, you couldn't put attributes on inventory items. You couldn't put variables on them. So that's kind of what you kind of need for that.
Yeah.
But I know that you can do it in Adventure Creator because I wrote a script for it. So we'll get to that. It took me about a year to finally solve it, but when I got to it, it was beautiful.
You got there.
I got there. It took me a long time. I am not a natural programmer when it comes to these sort of things. But I get there. In the end, after several months. Now, if you have a dialogue puzzle... So let me just recap on that again after going on a tangent. Your homework for this week.
Yep.
I mean, for one thing, for the people who haven't done the rest and want to join us, obviously you have to do that as well. Again, I would suggest coming into the Grammar Hole Discord, which again, I know it's called the Grammar Hole, and if you haven't been to our stream and to the Grammar Hole, that might sound perplexing. It is an in-joke from us playing Stories Untold. It is nothing sexual. I keep telling people. So, your homework to join us in there is that list that will be posted in the Grammar Hole as well. But also to come up with the logic. And when I say the logic, I don't mean the variables. We will talk about that later. We will work out how to actually get your puzzles to work. But kind of like, you do this and this happens, and you do this and this happens. Basically the events you want to happen in what order. The steps, thank you. And also the interesting things where you can add a little bit of life to it by, using the wrong inventory item on the wrong object. Again, no dead men situations. I don't want to break the thing you're using. I don't want to give it away. I basically just want it to be like, say for example, with your example, you have the radio. Instead, you try to use the radio on the, on your, what's it called? I'd call him Robin again. Robin. Use it on Robin instead of the realtor. It's not going to have the same situation, but
he'll be like, I'm apparating right here. You don't need that to talk to me.
Yeah, exactly. So, something that adds in a little bit of fun and a little bit of, extra things to your world, because otherwise it is literally, you do this thing, you can do nothing else here. Where most people really like... you
want flavor.
You want flavor. You want to be able to do something fun. You want to show that you gave thought to something. So, like, say, for example, like any passer game where you type in fuck. A character's name.
Yeah.
So, because you'll know pretty quickly if the game has flavor, and the flavor being it gives you a funny message when you type that in, as opposed to I don't know what fuck is. Some games just don't. So that is your homework for this week. Your logic and your flavor. I like that we're calling it flavor. I like the flavor. You gotta have the flavor.
Gotta have the flavor.
So really, we are just gonna now recap those steps, and then we're gonna briefly recap where our games are at the moment. Cool. So, the questions that we have come up with for this is: who is the protagonist? Where are we? Who else is there? What is our overall objective? How does your game begin? What can we talk about? Items to solve our objectives. What happens when you use the correct item? how it ends, how is it controlled, what does it look like? Oh yeah, we didn't actually really talk about what it looks like. Basically, how complicated do you want it to look? Do you want it to look like Rugrats, or do you want it to look like the Mona Lisa?
Not
We're probably
Mona
gonna
Lisa.
we're gonna be a lot closer to Rugrats, I would say,
Mona Lisa.
to like what's it called, 8-bit Rugrats, with like shaky lines and everything. Oh, that's right. Bulby's story was going to be like Rocco's Modern Life, wasn't it?
That's right.
That's right. See, look, we already talked about that long time ago. How are we going to make our assets? For this first one, I'm going to say Aseprite, just because it's quite cheap.
I'm
It's
happy
$10.
with Aseprite. I've already got it, so
I mean, like, what's it called? There's a lot of cool stuff that you can do with an Aseprite. With an Aseprite? My goodness, I'm renaming it on the fly. There's some really cool stuff, and you don't have to just use it for actually making art. We'll get to that in Power Quest, because there's a whole tool based around loading our assets into that. Beautiful. What is our background? Which again, that's our setting, but how it's drawn, how it's done. Mine's going to be a slightly longer than average screen, so that it can move around a little bit of movement, and I think you're going to be the same.
Yep.
Yeah, because you need a bit more space, but you don't want to leave the room. What your inventory items are, and what's your logic. That's pretty much it. So let me go back to my story spark. Was that I had a artist called Edgar, and he wanted to get his table, and he wanted to speed things up. So obviously, Edgar's favorite table is gone, but there's 3 other tables, and he needs to get rid of the people and things that are there. So one woman's waiting for a croissant, and when she gets it, she's going to become Sailor Moon. There's a bickering lesbian couple that I'm going to give them. Men are from Mars, women are from Venus. And I'm going to do a reverse tablecloth trick to get rid of a dirty tables on a...
Very interested to see how that's going to turn out.
Yeah.
Very interested.
Especially with the animation just being like, hands come in, hands come out. Oh, they're all on the floor.
Yeah. And just a like sound effect.
Yeah. So Dave, let's recap us what your game's about.
So we've got Davis Malkman. He's a lactation consultant in Miami, Queensland in 1994.
I thought he was over in Western Australia. He's moved.
Got that mixed up. I was thinking Waikiki, WA. So he's going to come home after a hard day of lactation consulting and wake up in the middle of the night to a ghost over his bed, being Robin. And he's going to be all like, "Oh, I'm sorry, dreadfully sorry. Listen, we're moving in here. You don't have to do anything. It's just to haunt the place. You don't have to move out. Ha ha ha. Blah blah blah." And he's going to be like, "I got to get these fucking ghosts out of my house." And then we're going to... Where am I up to? So we're going to find a way to, like, a little loophole to nullify the haunting deed. We're going to... that's going to say, if the place is too happy, you can't haunt it. So we're going to figure out a way to make the house seem a bit brighter, like clean it up maybe. And then we're going to convince Robin that he can get a better haunt.
Oh, nice.
And the goal of it is to get the ghosts out.
Nice. Now, I've just had a thought during that, and I don't know if this is too spicy, but would you like to consider putting in a secret ending on yours where you and Robin decide you guys are going to get along house on fire and you invite them to stay instead?
And they haunt the house? Yep, done.
Yeah,
Secret
done.
ending? Done.
Yeah.
Done. I'll make that like an Easter egg thing. Click something
100%.
7 times.
Oh, God. But if you click 8 times, you're done.
That's it.
We, of course, are referring to Synergist. Actually, that was you had to click it 6 times. If you clicked it 7 times, you were locked out of the secret path.
That's what I was thinking. Secret ending.
My God. He was
you know,
a mad genius. We should all aspire to be Aaron Marsh. And how
Find
many?
the secret
I was about to say,
100
how many secret keys are you going to have in your apartment?
Ooh, actually,
Ooh, that could be it. You have to find all the secret
collect the
keys.
Yes.
And then
collect the
when
keys.
you solve the thing, if you solve all of them and you've got that many keys, you're just going to be like, you know what, Robert?
And that's-
God damn,
that's
I keep
the-
calling him Robert. Oh, Robin, you know, we've just really gotten along. Maybe you guys should just stay.
You know what?
Yeah.
It's kind of lonely here. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's it. That's it. So 7 keys. And that'd be like a if, wouldn't it? Like if player has 7
Yes.
in inventory. Cool.
That is 100%, although we haven't talked about variables yet, but we will get there. Anyway, that is our class for this week. Again, you have your homework. If you haven't already, like the video. Sorry, I mean, join our Discord, the Grammar Hole. We will have a special category in there called The Joy of Adventure. Not the same one that Dave and I share, because that is our planning channel. But
We're gonna have everyone, each of you, stand up at the front of the class and read out your homework next week. So get it
yes,
done.
because that is actually kind of the hope. Not the stand up and classwork thing, because I'm quite happy for that to stay in whole, or anyone to ask questions on this YouTube video. But more like at the end of this, when we have made our games, we're going to review my game, we're going to review Dave's game. You know what? We're going to, at that point, let you guys decide who made the better game. It's going to be me. We're also going to have a look at your games if you've made one. I really kind of hope that someone does make a game. It'd be lovely.
Me too. That'd be great.
If it doesn't happen, that's all right, because we're not really here for that. We're just going to keep making games because you guys, not you guys, but this kid wants to learn, and I need to get back in the game myself. I need to get back to the game of making games. So we're going to make that happen. And I think we're going to have a lot of fun doing so. So, yeah, I think that's the end of our video.
Very excited.
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye.
And you said it for me. Excellent. So